I was big into BBC, bulletin board systems, and the where scenes back in the late 80s. The internet before the World Wide Web. Basically, call it piracy if you want. That's what it was. And we were dumb kids, looking for free games, swapping around downloads from message boards, running phone bills up, and swapping out copying our floppy disks. Now, I've played all kinds of games, but my favorites were RPGs, especially Wizardry and Ultima. It was about 89, about a year after Ultima 5 came out. During one of the floppy trading parties, my friend Jeff, who went to the handle Lord Camero, took me aside and pulled out a pile of 7 5.25 floppy disks, all marked with Abyss in black marker, which isn't a very common way to label your wares back in the day. He said he got it from BBS. He called up in Texas. Ultima Developer Origin Systems was based in Texas, so we figured it might be the real deal. It's called the Abyss, but I think it might be a prototype of Ultima 4. He went on to explain that I could use the same character from Ultima 4 and 5, but warned me that it was a very strange take on the Ultima formula. That didn't surprise me. Ultima 4 and 5 had completely different twists on the previous Ultima games, something the new could be expected. I took the discs home and booted up on my C64. As I opposed the adventurous theme of the Ultima 5 started with Ultima Abyss, had a quiet and mournful theme. I began the game and imported my player from Ultima 5. There was a counterpart in the theme at the same sinister minor key. The game began with the Avatar being ushered through the Mono Moon Gate and a ship of Ben Brenitera. While he was accompanied by my old friends like Lolo and Derp, the companion portraits looked aged and thin. Jana seemed to be the thinnest of most drawn. She explained that the Lord British had fallen ill with a mysterious disease and seemed to be descending into madness. She began to explain more about his delusions, but then a ship struck the whirlpool. I had watched helplessly as my companion sank into water. The screen faded to black and my character washed up near the shores of Bretina. I guided my character into the castle, where the citizens were unwilling to talk, regardless of my mastery of the virtues. They all seemed to believe Lord British was dying, but they were unwilling to say the fear that might happen. I decided to press the matter and seek an audience and the monarch away. Lord British failed to recognize the Avatar, saying, "Whist a boastful fool from my sight. I know him or not, and may be able to repeat that phase." After speaking to the guards again, he ordered my characters to be sent to the dungeons. There was a little to do in the dungeon. My only options were to rest and think about the gesture. Every time I rested on the stats, it read 1 year later. I must have reset it 40 times. By the 15th or so time, Jester had been replaced with a skeleton. I clicked through my inventory stats. 2 stats decreased, and Lawbrust, young Avatar, faded into a scraggly husk of an old man. I was beginning to grow frustrated when a guard appeared at the door of the cell and brought to my character Lord British, who said that he would release the Avatar from prison if he hunted down the traitors, and that had once been his companions. He gave no instructions on where to find them, but it was quite typical of RPG games at the time. At first I ran into Shamo, who had recently resurfaced into the Buccaneer's den. I didn't even bother talking to him. I merely attacked. All the characters in the town panicked and cleared out. There was no battle. I simply just attacked him in the status field, gave disturbingly detailed account of the Avatar mutilated his former friend. I proceeded to find and slay the rest of his companions in short order. It seemed like almost whenever I went, they were programmed to appear. When we all thought to be dead, the guard appeared again and escorted me back to the dungeon, saying he was waiting for a pardon from the Lord British. The jail guard appeared once more. Lord British has passed, and the half not there, but a final request from the Avatar. Lord British's last command was to descend once again into the Sengan Abyss and cast the Codex of the Ultimate Wisdom, the magic tome that would always be provided just an answer, and into the lava in the deepest pits of the abyss. The guard seemed possessed. He pushed my character and went into a ship bound for the abyss, but uttered, "I hope you fail." And with his bon voyage, his strangeness continued. My old avatar in rags and armed with only rusted weapons descended into the abyss. Rather than be hampered by the series of traditional enemies, they aided the avatar's request. Vultures were not only too happy to staglitz over the bridge gaps. The game proceeded easily, reaching the pit at the bottom of the abyss insultingly easy. I dragged the Codex out of my inventory, and then back to the game it froze and glitched. It returned to normal after the disk drive had suffered. A rag debris followed close behind, and questioned the avatar. He asked on how he had managed to virtue could easily be so commanded by a man whose mind had been so corrupted. The game pitted the avatar against Droop. Droop emerged from the victorious against my frail and outropic avatar. He took the Codex as punishment for the avatar's crimes and his wish for people's stability, not knowing what a monster I'd become. Whaled the avatar into the cell in identical size to the one of the Britannia's castle. The game again gave me the options to reset and talk again, although it seemed to be no one to talk to. Talking revealed to be a dialogue from nowhere in particular. "Thy fate is to starve here, die unforgotten alone." By this point, I had enough of what had been this elaborate prank. I turned off the C64 and then tried to leave my bedroom. The door was stuck. I jiggled the handle, the lock like if there was no tomorrow. Bashed the door with my shoulder. It didn't do so much as shudder, much less open. I sat on my bed at the dot matrix printer, began to roll out the line after the line, "Die, forgotten, and alone," interspersed with the words "monster" and "traitor" in lowercase. Paper rolled off the printer in reams, and it even reached the last scrap. The final words were printed as, "Is your freedom worth the price paid?" I turned my Komodo back on and went about my business about reforming the discs. The process was slow. The room seemed cold as I went to work. The first the game popped out of the drive, the label was stripped from the disc. I later found it in the drive, but it was the only time that's ever happened to my discs, before or since I finished reformatting the disc. I felt as if I'd been exorcised, like a weight that had been lifted from my shoulders. I never mentioned Abyss again to my BS buddies, and my interest of the scene fell the wayside when I went to college in the mid-90s. It was also worth noting that Ultimate Mid-6 did not resemble Abyss in any way, leading to think that it was an early mod. This was, I thought, the start of the affair, the end of it, while later I saw a nickname of Lord Camero in the forum. I sent him a DM, and lo to behold was my old friend, BBS friend, Jeff. We started talking again, reminiscing about the good old days. One day we were talking about Ultima, and Skype brought up the Abyss. Jeff was silent for a while, and he said, "I knew we'd end up talking about this." There had been more into the game, unlike me. Jeff's avatar was strong enough to kill the Droop. The avatar dropped the Codex into the lava, and the guard earlier returned, facing the avatar. The screen then faded to black and said, "You are free from your responsibilities, of your morals, and your friends. Reveal 5 freedom, avatar." He said that the game cut to the avatar wandering about the overworld. He could visit all the towns in the game, but a few people would speak to him, and those would express fear in his return. He explored his world and found Britannia's castle empty. The throne room was also empty except for the decaying corpse in the seat. He examined it further. The skeleton crumbled to dust, revealing a hollow base of the throne. Inside was a cloak with holes rigged with blood, a dagger crusted with blood, and a cracked skull, a piece of parchment paper, and an eye socket. He removed the parchment paper, and it simply read, "I am not myself lately, Lord British." After he found the parchment paper, the discs erased themselves. even those that weren't on his drive at the time, so he told me. He also said he tried to call up the BBS and download it from, but found it was disconnected. He wrote the Abyss off in a very strange early way, attempt to a total conversation mod. It had been mentioned that much since neither of us had even had the reference to it outside of our own experiences. Sometimes I even think it was a joke he played on me, but if he went to do much trouble, why only me? We were acquaintances, but he knew a lot of people too. He said he traded around to other people, but hadn't heard from them. The genesis of the Abyss is a total mystery. There isn't really any documentation of it online. If anyone's heard anything about it, I'd love to solve that mystery.